All right, welcome to Ghost Tales, the show where we talk about paranormal experiences and haunted places around Hampton Roads, and we have a little fun doing it. With me today is Elizabeth Goodwin. She's executive director of the Great Bridge Battlefield Museum. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And also we've got John Stull, who is the docent at the museum. Welcome.
Ma'am.
I love the way you've dressed up for this. This is awesome. Is this how you dress for normal every day?
This is my normal attire. I'm remarking on how you ladies are dressed. This is quite something.
Well, thank you for being here with us. And the Great Bridge Battlefield Museum, it's something I definitely need to look more into because it sounds really, really interesting. So how long have you guys been open?
The museum's been open for about 5 years, but our foundation has been around for 25 years. We were formed in 1999 by a group of citizens who wanted to preserve the history of the Battle of Great Bridge. And we raised the funds and the awareness to build out the historic park and the museum. And today we operate the museum that commemorates the Battle of Great Bridge.
Right. And the museum is on the grounds where the battlefield...
Yes, it is. Yes.
On the battlefield where the battle took place.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the history of the museum, how it came to be.
Well, the museum, the history is 250 years old. So the history is there. And we just created the museum to preserve the history and to teach that history to the next generation, and why history is important, why we need to preserve this history. And we have 8 galleries in the museum. It starts with colonial life and what life was like at that time, different perspectives that you might see in colonial life. And then you sort of move into a tavern and feel what it was like to be in a tavern. And then we have a prelude to the battle. We have a battle room, and we have an aftermath room. And then we have some galleries that are dedicated to the waterways and why the waterways were important and how they were a part of this battle.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting. And that's kind of how Hampton Roads got its nickname, Hampton Roads.
That's
the
correct.
waterways
Yes.
were called roads.
Yes, the roads were the waterways.
How neat. Okay, so what can... you guys have a ghost walk coming up soon.
We do, on
or
October
ghost tour.
25th.
October 25th.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So we have a ghost tour that we do 5 tours throughout the evening. We have volunteers who act out some of the stories. We tell stories at the battle or stories around close proximity, Hampton Roads, the Dismal Swamp. Some of them are legends or folklore, but some of them are actual stories from the battle. There were people who perished at the Battle of Great Bridge, and we don't know what happened to them. Their remains may have been taken with the British, or they may have been left at the battlefield. So we tell some of those stories of the people who were here, and it's a different way to tell the history, but it's an important part of the history too, is what happened to the people. It's the humanity side of the battle.
Yeah. And what are people's reactions when they come to the museum and discover about it? Because is it a widely known, I'm new here, so I'm not sure. Is it a widely known battle? I mean, do people really learn a lot about this?
It's not.
I can make a quick comment on that since I'm a docent there. Many times this happens. I'll have someone go through the tour or at the end of the museum, and I'll thank them for coming. And they'll say, well, I was born and raised in Great Bridge, and I had no idea this was here. And not the museum, but the fact that the battle took place and they were on the ground of the battle. I had no idea. So,
gotcha. And talk about what year was this battle?
1775. So December 9th, 1775.
And how long did it last?
It only lasted 30 minutes, which
Really?
some would say, well, why do you promote a
Commemorate
battle
it.
like that? But it really is the first battle where Virginia militia defeat British regulars. And because of that defeat, minds in Virginia start to change, not just for self-defense and remaining British, but maybe we should be independent from the crown. So it ends up being a pivotal battle in that regard. It starts to change minds.
Wow. So it is a very important battle,
yeah.
and you take pride in your position there, educating people about this.
I do. No, it's fascinating, and it's fun because, as Elizabeth knows, working in a museum, you're going to get people there, and they're going to feed information to you as well that you didn't know, or a twist to it. And so we get to continue to expand the story, which I think is fascinating.
Gotcha. Yeah, 30 minutes changed the whole course of what people are
Yes,
thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. All right, so we've got some interesting things to talk about in terms of the ghost tour and what kind of the stories that people are going to hear when they come to that ghost tour. Again, what day is it?
October 25th.
October 25th. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the stories you might hear when you go on that ghost tour. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are here with Elizabeth Goodwin and John Stull from the Great Bridge Battlefield Museum. We are so grateful that you guys are here today. And you guys have a ghost walk coming up on October 25th. And as part of this ghost walk, people are kind of walking around and hearing what stories from folks who, some of these are firsthand accounts, or stories that have been passed down from the ancestors who were there, and kind of what they experienced during the battle, after the battle, that kind of thing.
Yes, so our ghost tour is on October 25th, and you actually walk the grounds of the battlefield, and you get to hear some of the stories that we've uncovered about people who were at the Battle of Great Bridge. And one of the stories is of a surgeon who was on the British side, and he describes the scene that he saw and the wounded that he had to tend to after the Battle of Great Bridge. And it's a pretty graphic description of what he saw.
I can imagine being a surgeon.
Yes.
He would see the worst of it.
Yes.
Actually. So what kind of stories can we expect to hear from the surgeon?
Well, the surgeon talks about what he saw on the bridge after the battle, and he describes a vast effusion of blood and brains turned out and bones broken in 2 or 3 places and bullet holes through many. Again, it's graphic, but it's what happened at the battle. So you hear that side of the story.
Yeah. So do you have somebody acting as the surgeon
We
there
do,
to tell?
Yes.
That's really interesting.
But I mean, it's actually on the site of where it took place. So they're not
incredible.
so many feet away, other than they are 7 to 12 feet above where people fell and died. And the British force of regulars was 120 strong, if not more than that, a little more than that. And over half of them were killed, captured, or wounded. So that's a bad day for any military force.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. And also there is a Commander Fordyce who is there. And,
Oh, yes.
And talk about what we can expect to hear from him.
Well, Captain Charles Fordyce was the commander of the assault force of the Grenadiers, men that are 6 feet or greater, wearing those big, tall caps. A company of 60 assaulting the barricades, the defense works of the Patriots, and he led the charge. He fell about, well, they say 15 steps from the breastworks, and he had 14 wounds in his body when he fell. The Patriots recovered him. He died, and they gave him full military honors of a burial. Many people would say, why would the Patriots do that? Well, we're all British at the time in 75, and he was a commissioned officer, valiantly leading his troops, and it needed to be recognized. So even honor at that time was strong with these two opposing forces.
Wow, that is really incredible. That's so neat. And talk about, we also hear about the Great Storm of 75, and how much do we know about the Great Storm of 75? Because recording instruments were not the best back then.
That's correct. Well, and there's been a book written by, I think, Tony Wilson, who wrote on the Hurricane of Independence. And it is a major hurricane, hits the Carolina coast the first week of September, drives into Hampton Roads on the 2nd of September, and then on up through Philadelphia, Annapolis, New York, and then on up to the Maritimes. As much as we lose track of the storm after it hits the immediate area, during the course of that month, that storm either regenerates or there's a second storm in the Maritimes, and over 100 ships are lost at sea, and thousands of watermen and sailors are lost. So it's a very significant thing. It sets the stage for the tensions between the Crown and the colonists to come to a boil because of Royal Navy equipment being swept ashore. Patriots decide it's theirs and not the Royal Navy's. And so the tension is created. And starting in September, there's a raiding of the press. It gets back to freedom of speech, but raiding of the press here in Norfolk, and then on to a raid at Hampton in October.
Wow. And we hear from one of the survivors.
Well, we do. A matter of fact, I believe if the atmosphere is right and the veil between the human and the spirit world is thin enough, Captain Fordyce sometimes appears at the battle site, resurrects himself, because even though he was buried in Great Bridge, we have no knowledge of where that grave is. Even where the old chapel used to be, where we'd expect the grave to be, and where graves were, they had been moved, disinterred, and then placed elsewhere because that's now commercial.
Gotcha.
Well, there's no trace of Captain Fordyce's grave, and so maybe he still roams the swamp.
I love it. Tell me about your outfit. Tell me a little bit about. Give us a history lesson.
Well, this is a period of attire of a standard militiaman or a rifleman. Colonial attire. You would have generally a white or a checkered shirt. Some kind of neck stock. So the cravat or the tie around the neck is considered a neck stock. Every gentleman would wear a waistcoat, which is the brown underneath this. And then a proper gentleman would never go around just in shirt sleeves and waistcoat. You'd have to have either a jacket on, or in this case, I'm wearing a hunting frock. So if you're going to be out in the brush, fairly light, but it's rugged enough. It's canvas, so it'll protect you from the thorns. And yes, buckled shoes, stockings, and breeches. Although some people would wear leggings if you're going through thorny areas. But yeah, fairly typical. I'm a courier, so I have a messenger's pouch, and my necessaries are in my other pouch. There's very few pockets in colonial attire.
And don't forget the hat.
The hat. Well, the tricorn. Yes, indeed. Of course, the hat is important. No man would go outside unless he had his head covered. Actually, even inside, he'd have his head covered unless things were very casual. They were all three-corner caps. This is, of course, if you're in the service, Virginia militia would wear a round cap and fold up one side because you'd shoulder your weapon. But if you had a tricorn, then you'd shift your weapon, and that's where the term cocked hat comes in. So when you carried your weapon, you weren't constantly knocking your hat off. It has a cockade, as you see, and it's a black cockade. Why? Because the House of Hanover, King George III is part of the House of Hanover. His colors were a black cockade. And we were still Englishmen. And so if you were in the military, you'd wear black. Now, come later in the war, the French enter. Their cockades are white. So at the Battle of Yorktown, there'll be a mixture on both sides between having a black cockade with a white center or a white cockade with a black center. But then that's 6 years in the future from Great Bridge.
So you know nothing about that.
Oh no! Well,
not right now.
Yeah, that would take a while.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Battle of Great Bridge. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are talking about the Great Bridge Battlefield Museum, the Great Bridge Battle, and with us is We've got Elizabeth Goodwin, who is executive director, and we have John Stull, who is a docent there. And you're going to tell us a little bit more about some interesting things we didn't know before, maybe. But talk a little bit more about how this was the turning point. This was the battle that forced, I think you said Dunmore out of Norfolk.
That's
Talk a little
correct.
bit
Yeah.
about that.
Lord Dunmore, who's the royal governor of Virginia at the time, is attempting to administer the colony from aboard ship in Norfolk. And and the Patriots are trying to drive him out. They don't feel that he is an appropriate leader. He is abusive. He has brought regular military in, and they want to force him out. This decision comes after the governor had raided the press in Norfolk. And so the convention forces, what used to be the House of Burgesses, but now meet independently, they decide to send a regiment from Williamsburg, cross the James River to Surrey, through Suffolk, down to Great Bridge, and then come up to force him out of Norfolk. In order to do that, they have to cross the bridge at Great Bridge. That's the only land route to get to Norfolk. So both the British realize that that's important. The governor builds a fort there, a small fort, and then the Patriots understand that that's key to be able to press through that point. And so that's why it becomes what we say the first land battle in Virginia. Certainly there's been earlier engagements. There's been a raid conducted at Hampton, which is successfully pushed off by the Patriots. In fact, that's really our Lexington. That's the first blood is drawn at Hampton. And then there's a Patriot attempt at ambushing British regulars on the road to Kemp's Landing, or what you call Kempsville now. Mm-hmm. But this is the first time both forces decide to get that one piece of property and to control it. And in so doing, it's the first victory by Virginia militia over British forces. British force of over 120, as I mentioned, over half of them are killed, captured, or wounded. Under cover of darkness after the battle, they return to the ships in Norfolk. And by the middle of December, Patriot forces, now reinforced with North Carolinians, occupy Norfolk and don't allow the governor to be resupplied for water or grain or food. Most of the loyalists in the town, and there's many because it's a seagoing town, so you believe in the Royal Navy, they all flock aboard his ships or get on ships to be protected by the guns that he has. He has five combatants and has over 100 cannon, so he can protect himself at sea, but he can't get ashore. Right. He demands to be brought that he be allowed to be ashore at the end of December. On the 1st of January in 76, he comes ashore with a raiding party. They start a fire. It gets out of control, and Norfolk burns, and he accentuates that with a bombardment of Norfolk for over 10 hours. Wow. A residue of that is the cannonball at St. Paul's Church in the southeast corner. It's still there on the wall. Oh. It's been replaced. It fell down, but he left his calling card there, and it's there for all of us to see.
Right. Oh, wow. That's incredible. And talk a little bit about something else that folks might not know. John Marshall was involved in this, and he was the longest serving Chief Justice.
Yeah, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Marshall. He was a young man at 20. His dad was a major with the Culpeper Minutemen, gentlemen dressed probably very much like this. And so he brought his eldest son down to get him an experience of what it means to stand for liberty and for your own self-defense. And as a lieutenant then, he served and was at the Battle of Great Bridge and served for the next couple of years. Then afterwards became a lawyer, was a representative to the First Congress, and then ultimately named Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and has been the longest serving Chief Justice. He wrote over 504 opinions and established the process that we still use today of judicial review, that the Supreme Court can identify what is constitutional and what's not.
And that all can be traced back to his first moments as a Minuteman.
Indeed,
Yeah,
indeed.
that's so neat. And explain the importance of Minutemen in any battle.
Well, in Minutemen, of course, this tradition starts up in Massachusetts with the militia and Minutemen because they never knew where the threat may be. And for many of them, of course, it was the indigenous, and you had to be on the ready. You had to be able to respond within a minute, proverbial minute. Few people had clocks at the time, so it meant as fast as you could. So those that were part of the militia or the Minutemen, there'd be two distinct groups. Militia could take a little more time, but the Minutemen they had to have their rifle at the ready, and if called, grab it and go form up to either protect the village or protect the town or move to where they thought the threat was, whether it would be indigenous or the French and Indian War, whatever the French may have been throwing at the villagers, or now the presence of regular British soldiers that may be compromising our liberty.
This is so fascinating. Talk about how people respond when they come to take these tours. How do they respond to you?
Well, they are impressed because they have no idea. Of course, I have to admit, when I first showed up in Great Bridge, I had no idea either. But I saw this monument go up, and I said, "Well, what's this about?" I get accused from my family that I spent 30 years in the Marine Corps, and I said, "What do you mean you don't know about the Battle of Great Bridge?" But it's just recently now being uncovered and integrated into the larger story of the history. Recent release by Andrew Lawler on The Perfect Frenzy talks about it in detail. Rick Atkinson, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner, writing his first volume on the Revolutionary War, has a chapter on the Battle of Great Bridge. It is, when you talk about Virginia and the Revolution, many people think of what? Yorktown, of course. Well, and it was a big battle, over 26,000 combatants of various countries, ethnicities, and specialties. And it was a huge victory, and where Cornwallis surrenders, truly the Omega. But if that is the Omega, Great Bridge is the Alpha. This is where Virginians decide to stand for their self-defense, and in process of winning that battle, start to think in terms of independence.
Yeah, it's amazing, and basically paving the way for
Indeed.
our country.
Right.
That's
Because then come in May after that battle, they decide as a convention to be a free and independent colony and task Richard Henry Lee to go to the Second Continental Congress and make that motion before the remainder of the colonies, thus getting us that decision on the 2nd of July, but we'll celebrate it on the 4th.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. And talk to one more time. Sure. Remind us when this ghost tour is and how people can sign up for it.
Sure. The ghost tour is October the 25th. It's at the Great Bridge Battlefield and Waterways Museum, and you can sign up by calling our number 757-482-4480 or checking our website.
And what's the website?
The website is gbbattlefield.org.
gbbattlefield.org.
Yes.
Okay. And how much are tickets?
Tickets are $20.
Okay.
$20. And we have a lot of events throughout the year. This is our 250th anniversary year. So
it's a big year.
Yes.
Awesome. And how early should people show up to the Ghost Walk?
We recommend that they show up about 15 minutes before their scheduled tour time. We do tours every half an hour from 7 to 9 that evening.
Okay. And you recommend they wear comfortable shoes?
Yes. Comfortable shoes. It's about a quarter-mile walk.
Gotcha. All righty. Lots of fun. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth and John.
Thank you.
We really do appreciate you coming here and giving us a little bit of history while we're at it. And a little bit of ghosts. A little bit of ghosts. I love it. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for Ghost Tales. And if you've got any ghost tales that you want to share with me, you can drop me a line at ashley.knight@wavy.com. And who knows, we may have you on the next Ghost Tales. So until then, we'll see you next time.